So, Katerina, first of all, welcome. And I would like to start with the question that, as you know, that operators across Asia are expanding right now. But due to the fragmented regulatory frameworks, most of them are possibly having some sort of trouble, as you can see. So, what emerging regulatory patterns or convergence trends do you often see, and how gaming businesses can design themselves to become more scalable in the near future? What do you think?
So first of all, you're absolutely right. And we do have this issue not only in Asia region, let's say, it's some global trend that we have as for this moment. Unfortunately, it's quite complicated to get the same result as we have like in EU, for example, whenever the legislation is harmonized. So I ask the operators here in Asia not to be very sad because, like each operator in different regions actually faces the same situation here. So, however, we have some quite good news here because we see a strong tendency in order to get a more harmonized legislation over different countries here. So let's see, the beautiful example that we have for this moment actually is Sri Lanka, where we're actually taking this interview. So they do show like the great example on how the local government can work the regulation here to take the correct decisions in order to get the control over the operations that we take here, and to provide like very clear instructions to the operators how they can get their operations out of the, let's say, gray type of the operations into the compliant and appropriate way in order to target this specific market. So it's like not only the one case that we have in Sri Lanka, actually we expect it to be, the same type of the regulations in other Asian markets, for example, like in Philippines, and in order for the government to show that it's not obligatory just to forbid, the operations, because unfortunately they do still they continue their operations outside of the legal field. However, like to have all the instruments in order to provide the good climate for the business and to show that jurisdiction is stable, and like to use the benefits outside of these operations in the form of taxes, for example, and control how the business actually operates here. And like answering, the last question that you have in this blog, I would say that we should look strategically on the business plan of the operations, because in case the business they would like to scale for the full region, we need to think about the specific regions where the client would like to operate, and to think about one like global structure, like for example with a single holding entity that actually will collect all the legal assets in some specific countries here. So it's better to think about that in the beginning, rather than to have some specific entity that cannot be implemented into the global structure on the further steps.
Absolutely. Second aspect that I would like to talk about is artificial intelligence. So, as you know, AI has its own benefits and also it is getting a bit of. So, with accelerating fraud, bonus abuse, and affiliate-driven risks, how should gaming companies, as per you, rethink their operations with compliance architecture to detect and respond exactly to this rising trend?
Okay, so in order to start with, I would like to state that AI is like the same instrument that the business should also use proactively in their operations, including the compliance procedures, including the procedures how they detect fraud in the company. So whatever we have, in the instruments, I asking operators to use it as well. And what I'd like to note that is like very important in most of the companies and like operational businesses, we see that different teams they have their own compliance structures of how they should detect fraud and how they should interfere with it. However, all those links they do not work together, and this is like the biggest issue here, because all the risks they actually appear on the stage whenever we have some transition from this like different stages. For example, the compliance procedure that actually the support team has, they should be aligned with the one that has like the anti-fraud team, and so then it should be transferred to the product team, etc., etc. So like compliance is not only the scene that is like responsible and coming only from the legal side. We should instruct all the teams here inside in the product to take care about their part of the job, and that should be aligned. So this is like very important to follow the steps. And whenever you also like hear about some new cases that happen, so I'm like very happy that actually Sigma exists, so like all the business operators, platforms, like all the experts can come here to exchange, like the experience here. For example, I'm just like, actually I had, the hearing of the speaker about the fraud case. It's like a great opportunity for everyone to come and to get a new experience, and what is obligatory to implement that into your business here. So it's like an advantage to come to Sigma and to get a lot of useful information here.
Absolutely, I would like to say that with the accelerating pace of regulation and also compliance, and yes, definitely have not been that. Where do you see is the biggest blind spot when we come to when the companies actually come to build their own legal and compliance foundation?
I would say that as for this moment, especially during the procedures of the establishing of the legal setup and the compliance structures, people are too focused on some formal things. Like, for example, the regulator tell us about the list of requirements that we should need to do. And we have like a huge number of different documents and policies here. So people do not take the idea that it should be like not so like informal thing. Let's say, you need to implement, like all the procedures here or the instrument that are mentioned. So in most of the cases, the teams, they just do establish like very detailed and very complicated the procedures that cannot be implemented by the product, on the further steps. So people, the businesses, they are like very focused on some formal things before, like for the structuring, and they do not think about the maintenance, for all that assets. And then they do face with some complicated things. For example, they do not have like enough resources in order to follow on the instructions of the policies. They do not have like the local specialists that should advise on that scene. And they are super focused on one single market that they are targeting here. So what you mentioned is very important, that you need, like to check about the future plans that you have, and not to be, like so customized for some specific market. For example, in case you'd like to add a new market into like your business operations, it's much more better than to add, some customized module rather than, like to redo all the policies and like internal processes here. Because, I know that it's like very painful for the businesses actually to implement something, and they do not have any time, resources, or like, financial resources in order to do that. So please think beforehand, and that will be like the best advice that you have for your scaling.
Well, when we talk of crypto and even gaming, and also like forex projects, so there is one thing that is payment instability that is still a very big concern for many of the people in this industry. So, what do you think that what exactly indirectly or directly might influence whether a business can maintain reliable banking, acquiring and payout channel as it scales much bigger than what is it right now?
Okay, so very important to start thinking about the payments on the stage when you choose the jurisdiction for the incorporation of your company, and on the stage when you establish the full holding, with different entities under the umbrella of the holding entity. What I mean here precisely, that like different jurisdictions, they have two different policies of the payment onboardings. So in case you would like to have the window to actually integrate all the payment methods from the tier 1 countries, you should choose a jurisdiction from the tier 1. Okay, so it's like impossible to have an Asian entity, for example, and to arrange the proper payment methods coming from the European Union or something like that. So that should be matched, and that should be like a very important criteria, for the choice of the jurisdiction where your like holding company will stay. And it's also like very important to think about the representation of the holding itself, to the payment solutions here for their compliance team, because the picture should be like very clear, and you should have an idea about the structure of the entity and how you represent them, especially in the iGaming businesses. So you cannot use like one single company, like for all the operations side. You should show to the compliance team of the payment methods that you have like the holding entity, operational entity, the payment processes company, and that will show you that you are like very trusted and very well prepared compliant for them, because we have like a huge number of the declines coming from the compliance team of the payment providers, because they just do not understand your structure, that they do not see that you have, wide business expertise in order to proceed with your business. And that will be, you should think about your risk profile and how you look like into their eyes here. And one more important advice that I'd like to add, that is actually coming from your boss, that please do arrange some backup, for your payment methods. So we do not have, it's not the era when we've had just only one bank account and one account with a PSP. It does not work anymore. So whenever the company is ready and your profile is ready, please proceed, with the onboarding, with a few payment methods for different markets in order to have, the identification of the risk in some other countries. So in case you choose the right jurisdiction, you to prepare the profile of the entity in order to look, very understandable and clear in the sight of the compliance team. And you choose a few options for the banking and payments. Then, your setup and payments will be efficient and more than enough for the operations.
And I hope you make the most of the time. I hope to hear from you again, possibly in the near future.
Sure, I will come to Dubai. I'm the biggest Sigma fan, so I do attend a huge number of events. Thank you so much for the time and for your invitation. I'm more than happy to give just a few insight that would be very useful for the people who will watch this interview.
Well, thank you once again.